Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there. This is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to The Jay Franzi Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to The Jay Franzi Show. A behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franzi.
Well, hello, and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franzi, and this is your backstage pass to the music industry. This week, we get to talk with a country music recording artist. We get to talk with Chad Bushnell. We'll talk to him about what it's like growing up in a rodeo family, playing music with Christian standards, and we'll talk about waking up on Christmas Day with a #1 hit on the radio. Now, Chad, he is not only a great recording artist, but he has 3 #1 hits to his name, and I can't wait to talk to him about that tonight. So if you would like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jfranzi.com. Now, let's get started. Tell us what it was like growing up in a rodeo family.
Rodeo, man, I grew up in a rodeo family. Both my parents were rodeo athletes. My dad rode bucking horses and bulls, and my mom was a barrel racer. And so, they ended up moving to Red Bluff, California so they could rodeo. They rodeo as much as they could, and when my sister and I were born, they took us to junior rodeos, and so that's, I grew up just doing rodeo most of my life.
What's that like?
It's great, a lot of great people, lifelong friends have made. It's a great part of my upbringing, teaches you a work ethic, having to practice team roping every week, steer wrestling, taking care of my horse, working on shoeing my horses, and so it was, it just taught a lot of life lessons and stuff.
So what is steer wrestling like?
Man, it's like in between team roping and bull riding, because bull riding you got to be kind of pretty much half crazy to ride bulls, and then team roping is a little bit more like golf. And, so a lot of times for me, I don't know if I was quite bull riding material, but I got a little bored team roping. So steer wrestling, that was my event, and it happens quick. You got to, you get out of there, you're jumping off a horse 30 miles an hour and hope that you don't miss.
It sounds very dangerous. How dangerous is it?
Yeah, it takes being able to ride a horse really well. And I was fortunate, I grew up riding horses my whole life. So by the time I was in high school, I could at least ride good. I just needed to be maybe just a little bit bigger to throw those steers.
Well, you say you've been doing it your whole life. Is that because your family owned a ranch?
My grandparents did, and they ended up moving to Red Bluff too. And I just, I grew up basically doing ranch work, though. I built fence, worked with my dad shooting horses, just anything you would do on a normal ranch. And so, basically rodeo kind of tied in with that. So
you make it sound like it's just no big deal, but that's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I had a great upbringing, so. Very
cool. I saw on your website, it says that you play music with Christian standards. What's that about?
Yeah, we grew up going to Cowboy Church and then, regular church with my great grandma. And I, ever since I got my first lesson from a guy named Frank DeSalvo when I was about 4, and I couldn't wait. He's a singer. He does a Frank Sinatra tribute. He's involved in Cowboy Church. And so ever since I learned to play, I was always playing at church and singing wherever I could. So the church was a big part of my upbringing. So Christian country has always been a special part.
You said Cowboy Church. What is Cowboy Church?
Yeah, so Cowboy Church is just, basically it's like going to normal church except a bunch of cowboys and cowgirls. That's basically what it is. And when I was young, they used to do it at the auction yard in Cottonwood, California, and so it really made it Western. And we do it actually in the show ring. And so it was pretty neat.
That's too funny. You said you did both. So is it the same concept at both places?
It was, yeah. Basically, when we did Cowboy Church, it was Wednesday or Thursday night a lot of times. So we'd go there, it'd be in the show ring. If you've ever been to an auction and there's the cattle run through in the sawdust, that would be where the pastor was. And we'd be up in the stands listening. And that's where I first started playing. And then I'd be at normal church sometimes on Sunday with my great grandma, and I would play guitar beside her while she played piano.
All right. So how did we go from playing at Cowboy Church to opening up for some of the best of the best?
Yeah, it basically started there, and then started singing national anthems at rodeos and football games. And I can't remember how exactly where it was. I got asked to sing the national anthem at a PBR event in Red Bluff when I was about 16.
How stressful was that?
It was stressful. I got to know the promoters, so I sang the anthem there. Got to know some big promoters. And when I was 18, just about ready to graduate, 2 years later, they said, "Hey, you want to open for James Otto at the local fair?" And so that was the start. And James Otto was my first official opening act.
All right, hold on a second. Well, two things real quick. The national anthem, did you play with an instrument or did you sing it a cappella?
Always a cappella for me.
Okay, and how tough was that?
Yeah, it was. It took me a while. When I was really young, I just sort of went for it, and then at a certain point, my dad, mom kind of got me some vocal lessons, and kind of started getting. I did join choir in high school. That helped a lot. That's when I actually really started doing it seriously.
All right, so then you get that first gig, and you go to open up for again a biggie. How nervous were you?
I was for all of them. I was pretty nervous. I remember the most nervous I was, though, I think, in my life playing music when I was 16 years old, and went down to the state FFA convention in Fresno for the talent show, and I sang solo acoustic in front of 5,000 people. So I'm like, after that, I said, if I can do that, I can open for James Otto in front of 300s.
Right. How many songs do you get to play when you're opening for them?
Man, anywhere from about 20 minutes worth to 45 minutes. So, 8 to 12 songs usually, somewhere in there.
All right. Now, the highlights. Let's talk about some of the highlights. How about Dwight Yoakam?
And yeah, that's Dwight. So Dwight Yoakam is my favorite country singer. It's between Dwight Yoakam and Vince Gill. And
there's a variety right there.
Yeah. So, to open for Dwight, that was just a lifelong dream of mine, and thanks to my booking agency, they got me in on at the Lynn Hills Casino in 2018, and I got to open for him.
What was that like?
It was great. Definitely top 2-3 best shows I've ever got to do. There's probably 4,000 people, and I didn't actually get to meet Dwight that night. He was very, he just kind of came in, got off his bus, sang, and went back home, and that was it. But I did play his after party one time at the Pepper Mill, and I got to meet him there.
What was it like meeting him?
It was quick. They had all these rules, and I mentioned that I was friends with Ben Haggard, and he actually stopped and talked to me for a second, and basically shook his hand, got a picture, and had to keep walking. So
now they say don't meet your heroes. Did you have that experience, or was it a good experience?
I think it was a good experience. I mean, that the only thing is that I'd like to visit with him a little bit more, but
of course,
that was how it was. And I did have a chance to meet Vince Gill, but I just didn't do it. I chickened out.
You chickened out? Were you too nervous to meet him?
A little bit. Have you ever been to the Third and Lindsley in Nashville?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So I went there. He was sitting in with the Time Jumpers that night.
Yeah.
When he used to do that. I don't think he still does, but we went out and watched him, and he was just kind of putting up his guitar, getting ready to go backstage, and I was way up high on there, and I'm like, do I run down and shake his hand or do I? And I chickened out.
I used to spend a lot of time with his fiddle player, and
wow.
had an opportunity to meet him a couple times because of that. Super nice guy.
I heard he's nice.
Yeah, very nice. So is his wife. So, again, let's focus on the Dwight Yoakam for a second, because that's your hero, and you get to open up for him, even if you don't get to meet him. How nervous were you that night, and what was it like? Do you remember performing, or is it just a blur?
No, I remember quite a bit of the stuff, and I grew up, obviously, the Bakersfield sound, Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, Dwight, that's what we listened to growing up. So there's some influence there. And with my stage presence, I tend to do some of the moves that Dwight does, just kind of, I've always have since I was little. And
on purpose or by accident?
Yeah, I don't go quite as like he did. I mean, obviously Dwight gets really into it, and it's his gimmick. But certain songs, I'll do a few of the moves. And I remember my bass player came up right before we went on. He's like, "Hey, we're opening for Dwight tonight, so don't do those moves." And I always remember we both kind of laughed. I said, "Yeah, you're right." And so I held off on that show. But no, I got up there. I had a lot of friends and family, and I just enjoyed I think we actually had 45 minutes on stage. So it was great looking out to, people up on the hill, and it was just a great experience. So.
You mentioned your family being there. Do you get more nervous when you perform in front of your family?
A little bit, just because they've seen me perform so much, they're critical, and I'm like, I don't want to mess up.
I always say that I would rather perform in front of strangers than in front of my family because, strangers don't know what to expect. Family knows. They just know every mistake you've ever made along the way. It's a little bit more stressful to me.
Well, sometimes at certain shows, I'll get a text on stage from my mom. She helps run my merchandise and helps with things. And so if I see a text from my mom, I automatically know I need to do something different.
Well, I mean, you've got so many people that you've had a chance to perform with or open up for. Talk about Lee Bryce. I've had a chance to work on a couple of his albums now. What was it like working with him?
Oh, man. I tell everybody, I said Lee was the absolute coolest guy I've opened for. And it was at the Reading Convention Center in Reading. And man, this was a little while ago. And some of us were just out of college, my band. And, to me, I just, for some reason, didn't see Lee being, I thought he was going to be more just in and out. And he walks by after we opened, and he says, "Hey, you guys drink beer?" And we said, "Yeah, yes, we do." He says, "Well, as soon as I'm done with my show, you guys all come on the bus, and we're going to have some beers." And I'm going, wow, no one's ever, done that. And he followed through, invited the whole band on. We had some beers, and he actually gave me his number. And then from there, we kept talking. He's all right, we're going to go sign autographs. And we get off the bus, and there's about 300 screaming girls, and I walk behind him, and we sign autographs for about 20 minutes. And so, yeah, and honestly, his brother Louis Bryce is just as friendly too. I opened for him last year, and so both Lee and Louis are super great. So.
Yeah, I've had a chance to work with Lee on a number of occasions on a couple of his albums, but before that, he was writing songs for other people. Even from those days of going in and doing his songwriting demos, he's just an amazing guy, and he's a big dude.
Yeah, I didn't see him. Some of the others I kind of expected to be more nicer weren't, but Lee was the coolest, honestly. So.
Yeah, he was that way in the studio too. He was nothing but a great guy the whole time.
Well, that's awesome.
So, and then the other one was Exile.
Yeah, so that was through Diamond Productions for the Red Bluff Roundup, and it was even cooler because I had just met them about a year before I opened for him. So I have a connection with Teddy Gentry, and this has been a little while back. I got to play at his birthday party. And Exile were the featured. They came and did a free show for Teddy for his birthday, and so I got to meet them all there. It was a private deal. And about a year later, I get to open for them, so they all kind of remembered me or acted like they did. What a talented band too! Exile was just amazing.
Oh yeah, no, we had Tony Cottrell on the show. Tony's their front of house engineer. He's a nice guy, and that's my introduction to the band. All right, well, enough about the others. Let's talk about you. You've had a chance to have some pretty popular music out on the streaming platforms, radio, all these places. Let's talk about What Would Jesus Do?
Yeah, so that, I entered a contest. Lisa Daggs, she's a Christian singer, and I was playing at Cowboy Church in Nashville, and she encouraged me to enter this contest, and I ended up winning the California region and going back to Nashville. And I ended up in about second or third up against Dustin Steen, who won the contest. And I think the top 5 got single song recording contracts with the Sin Music. And so basically that meant I got to fly to Nashville and write with Corey Lee Barker, who's a Christian country writer. And we wrote What Would Jesus Do? So.
You mentioned Cowboy Church again. I lived in Nashville for 20 plus years and never once knew there was a Cowboy Church there. Where were they? What city were they in?
Yeah, the best one is, it's called Music Valley Cowboy Church now, and it's, at the Texas Troubadour Theater behind the Opry in Music Valley. And so that's where, they let me perform there and showcase the songs. And that's, man, I was nervous for that because Corey's written hit songs. He's written songs for movies. And so my biggest thing was they wanted me to present the idea. And I'm like, man, I'd never really written a full-on Christian country song in 2018. So I'm traveling there. I'm on the plane, and I'm thinking, like, I have one day to think about it. What am I going to write with Corey? And this kid walked by with a WWJD bracelet on it. I said, hey, there we go. What would Jesus do? And so I got to work on the plane on my laptop, and I presented my ideas to Corey, and that's how we wrote it.
How much time was it on that flight?
About 4 hours.
So you spent 4 hours, thinking about the song, What Would Jesus Do?
And I saw that kid as soon as I got on the plane. I said, there we go. I know there's already another song called What Would Jesus Do, but I even wore the bracelet as a kid too, so it's kind of special.
Sure. Now the song, it's kind of got a slower feel to it, and it comes in with, big kick drum and has some traditional instruments, piano, steel, that type of stuff. Were you thinking about that on the plane when you were writing it? Were you just writing lyrics on the plane? What was that experience like?
Basically, I was just thinking of lyrics and just basic picking. Jeff Bates put the music to all that. He's the one that kind of did it. I didn't expect that. When I heard the track, I was like, wow. And then he brought me in to do vocals, and it was like being in the vocal military with Jeff. And I actually liked it. It really pushed me to sing it, best I possibly could. And
so did Jeff produce it?
Jeff did produce What Would Jesus Do? Yeah, that was part of the deal for, getting to do that. And I got in the vocal booth room with him for about an hour and a half, and I probably sang it like 20 times until I got it right.
Yeah, talk about that experience for a minute.
Yeah, it was great. I was supposed to work with Lisa Daggs, but the timing changed when I was able to be there. Jeff Bates just happened to be in the studio, so he got in there. I think he did some of the instruments. He hired out some people, and I just basically showed up and sang. And I mean, we went through I sang the song multiple times, went through each phrase. Okay, Chad, I need you to sing it like this. I need you to go up, and so.
So he was kind of a hands-on producer then.
Yeah, and it was just great. I mean, Jeff's had a couple hit songs, and so it was kind of an honor to get to work with Jeff.
Well, some producers, come in with just a feeling and they walk you through it, or they just orchestrate the studio session by hiring musicians and hiring engineers and stuff. But some people get in there and get hands-on and tell you, like you said, how to sing a line or a phrase. So he was more of that type of producer then. Yeah.
Jeff and Dave Gibson are my two. Those guys really pushed me to get better, and I needed that. Really, I was glad they did that. At the time, I was kind of going, But.
So overall, you enjoy that type of experience, or at least looking back on it now, you enjoyed it.
I did. Yeah, it was great, and I hope to get to work with him again. So.
But at the time, it may have been a little rough.
A little bit. I'm like, do I really have to sing it 3 more times? But okay.
So talk about the success that song had.
Yeah, so we put it out through Ascend Music, and I woke up Christmas morning and it was #1 on Christian Country Radio. So what a cool Christmas present.
That's awesome all around for multiple reasons, right? But
yeah.
Describe that feeling. Describe what it was like for you.
Yeah, and it was great getting to go and call my parents that morning and my wife, everybody, and be like, hey, What Would Jesus Do is #1, and the coolest thing about the whole experience is about 2 or 3 weeks later, I get calls from radio stations saying, hey, where's your next song? And I'm like, So, because as an artist, you're usually reaching out to radio stations.
Right.
My song actually had radio stations calling me. I was like, wow, how cool. So, and that's when I called Corey and was like, I need another song.
So that's a good point, too, because a lot of artists don't experience that, where radio stations are reaching out to them. So when a radio station reaches out to you, first of all, how do they reach out to you?
Some of them via phone, email, Facebook, a few of them, all kinds of different. That's why I check everything pretty regularly, to make sure. Yeah, I've been blessed getting to be, played all, a lot of down by the Bible Belt, they call it, a lot of Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, a lot of those stations. And I recently started a tour there finally. I did some shows in North Carolina and South Carolina earlier this year. So I'm really hoping to start doing more touring down there. That's my main focus.
So that's going to be pretty cool, too, to get to a point where you have to go out and support what's being played on the radio. But you mentioned in there that you made that phone call to say, hey, we need to put together another song. So how quickly was it till that next song came together?
Well, so the second one, That Ain't My Church, I didn't write that song. I was kind of in a position where I couldn't get over to Nashville in time. So I just said, Corey, man, I love what you did with What Would Jesus Do? Could you send me 6 to 8 songs? And that, a lot of artists do that. I mean, it just depends on the timing. And the second I heard That Ain't My Church, I just knew that's a hit song.
When he sent it to you, was it fully demoed out?
It was, I think, just acoustic vocal. I'm pretty sure. And Pastor Barry Smith and Corey Lee Barker wrote that song. And we took it. Lisa Daggs produced that, which, Lisa Daggs is great. And the coolest thing about That Ain't My Church was that Brent Mason, my favorite guitar player, played the guitar on it.
He is awesome. He's probably the number one guitar player that's called out of Nashville all the time.
Well, I was a little embarrassed because we went to dinner with Lisa and her husband, Ronnie. Ronnie's a great Christian singer as well. And there was this little miscommunication right before I left. Ronnie said, see you at Omni tomorrow, Omni Studios. And I said, okay. I showed up at Omni and walked in there, and they said, oh, who are you? And I said, I'm here to record my song. And they said, oh, come have a seat and hand me a soda, and they're all nice. And I'm sitting there. I don't see Lisa or Brent Mason. And I check my phone, and I have like 20 missed calls from Lisa. And so I get in the car. Luckily, it was only 10 minutes away, and I haul butt over to Funhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Funhouse Studios, where the recording was. And Brent Mason steps out the back, and he says, hey, we're waiting for you. So I said, that was pretty cool.
So what was the experience like over there?
Great. Funhouse Studios is my favorite studio to record at in Nashville. Ernie, Raul, or whatever, he's great, and he oversees everything. And Rodney, the engineers, they have the best working in there. And so that's where I normally record if I go over there.
So you mentioned Omni too. It's sad, but Omni's not there anymore.
No, and I never did get to record there. I just got to go in there and have a soda, basically.
Go over there and just hang out for a little bit. So when you went over there, that's when the instrumentation, everything came to be, because that's what I wanted to mention earlier is when you received that demo, if it was fully demoed out, because it has a pretty cool B3 part in there,
Yeah, and who was playing piano was Gordon Mote on that track.
One of the best.
So I was just starstruck by the whole experience. I got Brent Mason, Gordon Mote, who I've known about for a long time, and it was just overall a great experience. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And just the way he plays and attacks the keys when he's playing, it's very percussive. So it's just a cool thing to watch. Mm-hmm. All right. And then you followed that up with a third one.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that. Thank God.
I went in and, as much as I love Christian country music, I told Corey and the guys in the writing room, said, hey, I kind of want to write something sort of middle of the road, because most people I sing for are, sort of, I'd say beer and a Bible, and so that's kind of how we came up. And I told him about things that I'd been through and, and that's how we wrote the song basically off that.
It's got a traditional feel to it, and especially in the bass line. So we talk about the instrumentation for these songs. Did you have any say in the instrumentation?
Well, not really. I just, Dave Gibson ended up producing Thank God, because I was doing my full EP with him. And so he, they basically picked the band. I think we did that at Funhouse Studios. And I, really didn't know a lot of the band members on that track, but I trusted Dave and Rodney, who's the engineer there, and Ernie, that they would have a great band, and they did. And I just basically focused on my singing, and let them handle the music part.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about Whiskey to Work.
Going on the other side of the spectrum, yeah. Basically a lot of the shows I play most of the time are places where people want to dance and have a good time, and so thank God, it's a good song, but it's sort of slow mid-tempo, and we just really needed something fast so that I could, that people could line dance to. And I was sitting at the local for the Porch Light Pickers round playing the Writers' Night, and this song came on, and we were like, wow, that was a good song. And I asked Dan Hudson, who's the host, I said, hey, this Whiskey to Work song, I said, I just want to know who sang it. I just like the song. And he's like, oh, because actually I wrote that, co-wrote it with some guys, and it was just basically kind of a demo singer that pretty much put that out. Or I should say there was a demo singer, and then the guy actually put it out, but he wasn't really touring with it. And he was mostly staying in Nashville, and we just straight up asked Dan and said, hey, could I record that and put my own spin? I said, I think the song has potential. It's great. And me being out on the West Coast a lot, so I took it to Texas. Instead of doing more of a Nashville sound to it, I did a Texas country rock sound to it, and that's basically what happened. So.
Well, it is. It's a more up-tempo tune, and it's really driving. It's got heavy guitars, but it's also got some pretty cool piano licks and a B3 pad in it. I mean, it's a full, well-rounded song, and I mean, it just sounds really cool. So again, can we talk about the studio experience, putting that together?
Yeah, for sure. That was a lot of fun, actually. I did that down in Houston, Texas. I'd been working with Aaron Watson's guys and Tyler, and we did 2 or 3 songs, and I ended up doing this program through Edgewater Music, and they basically, they have this whole program where you just from start to finish, you work with them on finishing your album. And so I got in the studio with Derek Haynes, and he put the band together for me, and I brought my bass player from Reading because he wanted to be a part of it. And we just went in there. I said, man, I really just want to make this as rocking as possible. Like, think of something with a music video that people would be line dancing in. And so they took it, and we ended up like doubling the vocals. Like, everybody that was in the band got in the vocal booth at the end, and we sang Whiskey to Work together. So if you listen to the end of the song, you can hear that where everybody's just singing. And it doesn't matter how good or bad you sing, just we want everybody to, yeah. And I'm planning on doing a music video to that, and at the end of it, we're gonna have people like singing in the video. So,
well, it becomes more of an anthem. Do you think of it as an anthem?
A little bit, yeah.
So you go in the studio and you bring your own bass player, and then Derek, he hires the rest of the musicians?
Yeah. He had an award-winning guitar player there, and I collaborated with him. Obviously, I thought for a while I was going to play guitar on my own album, but then I started playing with him, and I said, I better let this guy play.
Well, that happens a lot, right? And I don't know how often it happens with you, but when I've worked in Nashville, I mean, everything we do, even though the singer can play guitar or has written the songs, they typically always bring in a studio musician.
Yeah, and I throw in ideas. I mean, I feel like I play good enough to where if it's something that's just simple and works for the song, I'll throw it out there, give them my opinion, and then they'll, if they don't like it and want to do their own thing, that's fine too. I'm pretty going there pretty with open mind, especially with Brent Mason. I mean, I didn't really.
You teach him a few things while you were there?
No. This other guy, though, a couple of the songs, I had some real specific things. I played them for him, and I said, hey, if you like it, great. If not, do your own thing.
How'd that make you feel when somebody of that caliber accepts your idea?
I was pretty excited, because like I said, I didn't want to say too much, but I just said, man, this specific song, I've played this lick on it for a while, and I said, I really think it needs to be the intro lick to the song, and played it for him. He's like, yeah, let's just have you do it. And so I used his guitar and went in and did it. I thought that was pretty cool. And they had me do all the rhythm tracks for the whole rest of the album, so I played 36 rhythm tracks that next day.
That had to be one hell of a day.
It was a lot.
Now, I also see that guitar. It's not a guitar that I typically have seen in the past. What kind of guitar is it?
So this is a Breedlove, and Breedlove is originally based out of Bend, Oregon, which is, north of me. And this isn't really technically my guitar. This is one of my friends, Jack Talbert, and he's one of my dad's best friends. Used to rodeo with him, and he had this beautiful guitar custom made, and just told me, hey, I want you to take this out on the road. I don't play much anymore. And so when I was up there in Bend doing a show a couple of years ago, he sent me home with it.
No, it is a beautiful looking guitar, for sure. You mentioned going in the studio, and when you go in and you're around these people and you want to show them an idea or something that you came up with, how nervous are you at that moment bringing something like that up?
Yeah, it is pretty nervous. I mean, that's the thing sometimes, especially for me going in with vocals. That's because, you get a little intimidated. I mean, coming into Nashville, Music City, you're playing with the A musicians, you do get nervous. And sometimes it does affect the vocals. And something that I've been doing the last 2 or 3 years is we've been doing vocals separate from that. I'll do some demo tracks, and it makes me comfortable. And then I go into the studio by myself the next day, and I kind of like that better.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it is a little intimidating. You're sitting there with all, Brent Mason looking at you while you're going to sing. And I mean, right. He's heard Alan Jackson, George Strait sing, so like you're a little intimidated. But
Well, that's a great point. So when you go in the next day, describe that environment, because the whole point of you going in the next day is so you can focus on your vocal and be comfortable. So what's that experience like for you?
Man, I try to, when I'm doing it, I definitely go to bed early the night before, and get rest good, and, careful what I eat. I have all these little things I do, and, drink lots of water and stay hydrated. And I like coffee. Some people say the caffeine, isn't good. But I usually have to have coffee no matter what. I usually drink just water and coffee, kind of a combo. And it's funny. Sometimes I actually prefer doing vocals in the late morning. If I can. If I do it in the afternoon, I try to stay isolated and not talk much during the day. And obviously, I like to talk. So,
Well, most people wait till later in the day because they feel like their vocal cords are warmed up, whether it be from talking or even singing throughout the day.
Yeah, usually, but I know some of the best vocal takes I've done have been at 9 or 10 in the morning for me. I don't know why.
Did you find your voice to be deeper at that time?
Yeah, deeper, and just like I say, I try to go to bed early the night before and take care of business the next day. And
So we talk about you going in that studio, and when you go in and do your vocals, are there any sort of rituals or ways you like the studio set up?
And the vocal mic always just a little bit above. You don't want to be straining, but like kind of about level where you naturally would be, with just a little bit above.
Right, keeps your throat open.
Keep your throat open, yeah. And so that's something that's been different the last 3 or 4 years of recording. And basically for me, I do warm up sometimes, but mostly I just sing. I'll sit in the corner, I'll get there a little early, and I'll just sing 3 or 4 songs all the way through, and that's about as much as I'll do, and then I'll save it for my recording.
What kind of atmosphere do you create? Do you do anything like any sort of candles? You keep the lights dark, carpeting? No. I mean, anything special for you?
No, everything. No, just whatever I show up and do, whatever. I like the little effects in my headphones when I'm recording. I think that's. Some of them are like, man, why do you need effects in there? I really like that reverb. That's how I'm used to singing. So that's the only thing I'm a little bit picky about. But other than that, I'm pretty easy going.
Well, I spent 30 years as an engineer, and that would be a key thing, is to make the vocalist feel as comfortable as possible. And by adding a little bit of reverb, it helps. It makes them feel a little bit bigger than they would normally feel. And it gives them that feeling of like what it's like when they're playing live. Yeah,
my last person I recorded vocals was Chris Latham. Yeah, he's worked with a lot of the big guys on producing and different things. And so Chemo Forest produced my recent songs, and I did vocals later with Chris Latham.
Earlier you mentioned having an opportunity to perform and win an award. Can you tell us what the first award was and how that made you feel?
I think the one in 2018 at the ICMAs, and I actually didn't get to attend them, and so it took me about a year to get my award. So I was happy once I got that. But really going to the one that sticks out the most, 2020, winning Contemporary Vocalist of the Year at the Josie Music Awards, that was probably the coolest thing. And that was my first Josie Award. Nice. And it was at Pigeon Forge that year. So.
Oh, very cool. Did you like going there?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. And
isn't that a beautiful place?
Yeah, it was at the whatever that theater there.
That was in 2020.
2020.
So was that pre-COVID?
I think it was during COVID. A lot of people didn't go, but I was bound and determined to get over there and do whatever I had to do and get that award. And so I got one Contemporary Vocalist of the Year that year, and then we all got tickets to go to Dollywood the next day.
Which is just something you have to do when you're there.
It was amazing, yeah. Now we're working on a family trip there too. So
it is a very cool place to be. Now, you win a Josie Award, which is awesome, and it's for Contemporary Country Vocalist of the Year. Once you win an award, now do you start to feel a little bit more confident and comfortable when you go in the studio with these big guns?
It definitely helps, and build your confidence. And just the more I do it, I try to be in the studio as much as I can every time I write a batch of songs, or, if I write with Corey Lee Barker pretty much every trip, and Mark Banowski and whoever he brings in to write with, and that's my best experience, and then from there, if I'm able to get to write with Dave Gibson or Brian White, and that's just obviously a plus. Those guys have written big hits.
Oh yeah, especially Brian.
So Brian's cool, and I any chance I get, I try to write with Brian.
So since then, you've won several awards at this point. Mm-hmm. And you've had some opportunities come from those awards. So what kind of opportunities have you had?
Man, recording opportunities, and really, getting to write with Dave Gibson, Brian White, that's been huge. I mean, that's just like, wow.
So that came specifically from some of these awards?
It kind of did because, back home, I've promoted the Josie Awards a ton, and a lot of these venues have watched me the last 4 years. And so the reason I got to write with Brian White, there was something happened. It was just a weird deal. In 2 days' notice, one of the hit songwriters got sick and couldn't make Golf and Guitars in Sacramento. And so the venue person called me and said, "Hey, we've been watching you even win all these awards and stuff, so we're going to invite you out to be our special guest at the Golf and Guitars." And I was stoked. So I got to take the place of, I can't remember who it was. Well, they sat me right next to Brian White. Happened to be on his round. And he and I hit it off really good, obviously having the Christian country background. And
right.
So obviously after we were done, shook his hand, got his number, and got to write.
So you mentioned the Christian background again. You also had an opportunity to perform on the 700 Club. What was that like?
Yeah, that was great. That was Dean Scallon from SSM Records. And it's one of those things, happened to be in Nashville. What are you doing on Tuesday? And I didn't have anything going on. I was leaving Wednesday, so we want to come be on the 700 Club and be my actor. And I said, yeah. And so I was in one of the episodes, and basically I was Dean's artist. And so he had me sing a song, he had me interview, just did all this stuff.
So you had some other TV opportunities. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, so Universal Huntress, I got to appear on there with Morgan. She's a singer. She sang with Colt Ford. They had a single.
Okay.
Don't tell her I forgot her last name. And yeah, so the Girls with Guns, they're based out of Red Bluff, California. The founders where I'm originally from. And so I ended up performing a song with Morgan, and they aired it on the Universal Huntress show.
All right.
Yeah.
So I won't mention you forgetting your last names, especially since I don't know it to begin with. So that's all right. You also had an opportunity to be part of a documentary. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think how that actually came. Obviously, where we're at, we don't have regular TV, and we just have local stations. So we watch Kicks BBS a lot, and I actually knew the coordinator from the Reading branch, which reaches Reading, Chico Alturas, pretty widespread. And I finally reached out to him after I did my state theater I do a hometown show, and I said, "Hey, what about trying a show?" And he was all about it. Got some sponsors for the show, and we did it. So that was great. That was a great experience. I'm ready to do another one. So,
well, tell us about the documentary itself. It was North State Roots. What was that about?
It's basically a story about me and how I grew up in small town Red Bluff, and have gotten to do all these great things, thanks to my family support and the Lord. And that's basically what it was about. And they interviewed my parents, interviewed my wife, and a bunch of different people in town. And
so the whole point of me mentioning it is it's not just like you made an appearance in something.
No, it was my own show.
This was a focus on you.
Yeah.
So obviously things are taken off, and people see something in you.
Yeah.
That's got to make you feel great, especially in your hometown.
It's great, and it aired up here, and they're still trying to get it to air in the Nashville PBS branch, and that's my hopes, is that it actually gets to air over there.
We talked earlier about your time on the plane writing a song, but under normal circumstances, what's your creative process like?
I write a lot of songs on the plane. Every time I'm heading to Nashville, I just feel so inspired. I've written, probably a quarter of my songs on the plane. But, I like to write at home too, just on the back porch. If I have a morning off or whatever, I'll just go sit out there and start writing. And another person that I'm hoping to get the opportunity to write with at some point is Shane Miner. I don't know if you know Shane very well, but I sort of became friends with Shane. I think right now he only writes with Lainey Wilson, so he's a little busy.
Yeah.
But getting to hang out and get to know Shane has inspired me to write a few more songs too, really.
But we talk about that. I mean, on a plane, I know it's got to be tough. But when you're home and you're on the back deck and things like that, do you write with a guitar?
Yeah. I just sit there and I just kind of think like, hey, what's been going on lately? What do I want to write about?
Lyrics and music come first.
Probably I always try to get the hook first, but I'm love playing guitar, so much, and Brent Mason's my hero. I'm usually start out noodling and come up with a little riff or something, and I'm like, okay. But sometimes just different life experiences, I have a new song that I'm either hopefully going to pitch and get someone to sing it, or just sing it myself, if depending on what works out with it. But after meeting Shane, I was pretty stoked, and next couple of weeks I wrote one of my better songs based off of meeting him and the experience.
All right. Well, a couple of things in there. You mentioned Brent Mason being a guitar hero of yours, somebody you look up to. He's known for that real chicken picking type guitar playing. So do you pull that away from him, or do you pull his more traditional studio sessions out of him?
Of course, the chicken picking thing. I mean, that's always every guitar player's dream to be able to play like Brent Mason. I'm a long ways from that, but I do. Part of my show, I do play chicken pick on probably 4 or 5 songs. But yeah, no, I mean, it's in Albert Lee's obviously another one of my favorite guitar players. I really am a big fan of him. And
do you have an example of one of your songs that has some chicken picking?
It's funny. None of the songs I recorded, I've really played any guitar on, and so I guess I've chickened out, no pun intended, but chickened out on my chicken picking because I say, well, when I go back to Nashville, I have Brent Mason and people like that to play on it. I don't need to play on it. So, Jeff King.
Oh, Jeff King is awesome.
Jeff is one of my other favorite people. I was like, wow, this guy's such a great player.
Jeff is amazing. He was on the show, and I mean, he's just a great guy. He's out with Brooks and Dunn and Reba.
Was that who he plays for? Okay.
Oh, yeah. He came through town here last year, and my 9-year-old daughter went to the show with me. And he was so nice to her. He took her backstage, brought her up on stage.
Wow.
She just had the time of her life. I don't think I could ever just take her to a normal show ever again. I mean, he treated her like a rock star.
No, he seemed like a great guy. Just a day or two, I got to hang out in the studio with him, and I've kept in touch with him.
He's another one. I always say he looks like a lumberjack, but he's just the nicest, most down-to-earth guy, and he's got a sense of humor like nobody's business. He likes to joke around when he's in the studio.
He seemed cool. It was a great experience. He played on Whiskey Broken Heart, which is another one of my favorite songs I've got to record. He played on that, and I really love the guitar parts.
Well, yeah, he's definitely got some rocking solos and just guitar playing. I use him for a lot of, of the heavier stuff that I do. I always reach out to Jeff to come in. He's just an amazing, amazing guitar player, and he just plays some really heavy stuff for me. He can play anything, but I ask him to play the heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you've made it this far in your career, and you got a long way to go, but what kind of challenges have you come up with so far?
Challenges, man, just the traveling and the playing the shows, I mean, it's a lot. So many people say, oh, you just jump up there and play. They don't have any idea all the, because anybody knows that the travel's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And, I mean, and up here, I mean, touring so much in California, Oregon, Nevada, it's not cool during the summer, and
no,
a lot of shows in the heat.
115 degrees.
It's tough. And then, I mean, financial, I mean, it's you got to have money to compete in certain areas.
That's a good point too. I don't want to get into your finances, but how hard is it to live or make a living at your level?
It's tough because I'm still, I still work as a farrier a little bit sometimes too. I shoe horses and I sell jerky, and I mean, it just, it's a grind. So I mean, I'm shoeing horses a little bit during the week. I go off on the weekends and jump in the truck and travel. And I mean, it's tough, and I'm just, on a normal type of budget. So I do the best I can. I write the best songs and get them recorded the best I can, and then go from there.
Did you have any luck when you get the number one hits? Did that help at all?
It did, because I get to actually headline a lot of great shows at fairs and casinos, and I also do a Garth Brooks tribute sometimes, and it's even helped with that. And we're pretty picky where we do that. The agency doesn't, and they charge a decent amount, and it's that's been working out really good between getting to do some of the headlining slots as my own thing, and then some of the bigger Garth Brooks tribute shows.
So the songs, the number one songs, have helped you indirectly make money by getting some performances you might not have gotten in the first place. But have you made any royalties from the songs? I know some of them aren't yours, written by you, but the ones that were.
Yeah, not really a whole lot. It's mostly the touring these days and merchandise, and that's where we're really known. And my mom's sort of taken over the merchandise, and we collaborate with the company, and we come up with new stuff every few months. We're coming out with different design hats, shirts, and I'm going to do some collaborating with some other companies like Cowboy Fresh. That's a huge company that just a friend of mine's a founder of it. And so, really the touring and the merchandise is where the money's at.
All right. Well, we don't normally talk about education, but you mentioned school earlier, and you went to school for marketing. So what I would like to know is how you apply that experience in marketing to your career, and is it working?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say my dad, they encouraged me to do my music, but the one thing that my dad really encouraged me to do growing up was get a bachelor's degree, and not really just because of the education, but because of what it teaches you, and I won't mention any names, but I've had friends and other artists that I know that they didn't have any of that. They basically graduated high school and went and sang, and they don't have any business skills, and they don't know they don't treat the music like a business, and so, I mean, just those skills alone, away from the marketing, it's helped me tremendously, just, how to write a formal email, formal phone calls, where to put the money. And, if you make a certain amount of shows, you don't just go spend that, you put money away to invest in your business. And so all these things it's taught me, obviously the marketing, I mean, I've really stuck with more the authentic cowboy. So I've always constantly trying to figure out how to market my music to the right people.
So as far as the marketing piece of it, you've created a brand for yourself, and that brand is based off of, like you said, being a cowboy. But we also have other things to consider when we're talking about marketing. I mean, it could be as simple as your website and your social media. Are you doing your own website or your own social media?
Pretty much, yeah. And I have help here and there. And, basically we've talked, the guy I became friends with is CJ Solar. He's written some hit songs. He wrote Up Down for Morgan Wallen, and
okay.
He'd be a good person to get on here. And CJ's a great guy, and we did a show together opening for Joe Nichols last year, and I talked to him for about an hour, and we're just sitting there talking about marketing, and I was telling him about my songs, and all he cared about is like, wow, you shoot horses, and he kept going on about it, and I'm going, yeah, whatever, I don't want to talk about that. He's like, no, you really need to implement that in your TikTok and Instagram. And honestly, when he said that, I never really thought about it, and it's helped.
So you're doing your own social media, and you're including some of your personal life, which is absolutely the way to go to create that bond and that connection with your followers or friends. I like to call them friends, not necessarily followers, but you're creating that connection, that bond. Are you responding to all the comments yourself?
Some of them, it's a lot. I try to, but yeah, I mean, people seem to like it, and we were trying to find the best way to implement it. There's different ways you can go about it, but people like to see you being real, that, you're not just,
right.
So I've been trying different strategies. I mean, I'll post a video of me shoeing horses with one of my original songs in the background. People like that. It's kind of hard to sing when I'm underneath the horse, so I'm not sure if I'm going to
you don't want to freak out a horse either, right?
Yeah, and if I get kicked, maybe that would,
you get more views that way.
So we try different things. Sometimes I'll post just an original song sitting by a horse. I'll do different things, but people like the implementation of me shoeing horses and singing.
So that's a more visual aspect. So do you spend more time on Instagram than you do other platforms?
Probably I'd say Instagram's my number one. Yeah.
All right.
TikTok's tricky. I mean, because there's videos that I think are going to do good and they don't, and then the opposite happens too. So.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, your following on Instagram is high. You get 12,000 followers. It's pretty impressive. You mentioned TikTok. I mean, are you liking it? Are you loving it?
It's more challenging. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm trying to figure out what people like constantly, and it's really hard to get on there and just to, do one of you singing and playing, because there's so much of that. But people say, oh, wow, you shoes horses and sings, and then sometimes it gets more attention, So I've been kind of going that route when I can,
Would you mind singing something?
Yeah, not at all. What do you want to hear? It's whatever.
Let's hear your anthem.
Yeah. Well, Whiskey to Work's been my biggest song, so I guess I will sing that. I got that double vision, but my money home drink. I've had it for a minute. Don't plan on quitting it, damn well sure as hell know how to put that whiskey to work. I keep it fit, got 2 lots full, plus happy hour hit the sun. Open service, that higher power. Keep a little flask of my food, stick a little sip in the bow, their heads down to pray. Hell, hey, I put that whiskey to work. Take that bourbon to church, baptize me in vain. I'm a drinking machine, Kentucky, so good it hurts. It's been quenching my thirst, sweating 90 proof right through my shirt. I put that whiskey to work. Already over the limit, does the bottle on the table. I'd nothing left in it. So I hit the liquor store, called the boss and tell him I'm running late. I'm open for business, I'm drinking 24/7. Gonna let that Holy Spirit take me right up to heaven. There were 7 drunken days waiting on me at the early days. Hell, hey, I put that whiskey to work. Take that bourbon in church, baptize me in vain. I'm a drinking machine, touch me so good it hurts. Taste me quenching my thirst, sweating 90 through, right through my shirt. I put that whiskey to work. I put that whiskey to work. Hell, hey.
That's awesome, buddy.
I'm just a little hoarse from over the weekend.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Nice.
I got to perform for a wedding over the weekend, but I played 3 nights in a row, and so.
Tell us about the wedding.
Oh, it's great. Olivia Harm, she's another person you should have on here. She's Oregon-based, but she's a Texas country singer.
Very nice.
And so she randomly married a buddy of mine from college, and they hired me to sing their wedding. So she booked me some shows beforehand. That was a great experience. And she got up and sang. Her whole family sings, and it was just a big jam, basically. So
That's really cool.
it was awesome.
All right, sir. Well, we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we take a moment to shine the light on somebody who's worked behind the scenes or somebody who may have supported you along the way. Do you have anybody you'd like to shine a little light on?
And just my mom and dad, my wife, and my sister. You know, really, if that's what you're talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
they've had
absolutely.
great family support. Got to give them a shout out because they've all helped me in different ways. Yeah, mom, dad, sister, my wife. You know, those people. And shout out to my community, Red Bluff. I've had a lot of support from there. You know, Walker Printing, Kystein's Unlimited, the State Theater in Red Bluff. They've, you know, I get to do my own show every year there, which is probably my favorite show of the year, getting to perform there. So.
What part of the year is that?
I've been doing it November 16th, which is President's Week, kind of not too far
coming up.
before Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Very cool.
And this year, I'm bringing Ben Haggard, Merle Haggard's son, to be the special guest. So I'm pretty much, that's going to be the highlight of the year, I think.
What's it like playing with him?
Great. Ben's been my friend for a long time. He's, you know, obviously we live not far from where Merle used to live. And Ben Haggard and I have been great friends. And I ended up meeting him officially through Bruce Turgan, who used to play bass for Foreigner.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got a studio, and he introduced Ben and I, and we've just been friends ever since. And he's played on some of my tracks, and I've got to do shows with him. And
A big thanks to Chad for taking the time to share his stories with us. And thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you know anyone that would enjoy this episode, please be sure to share it. You can do that and find the links to everything mentioned over at jfranzi.com/episode 88. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franzi Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranzi.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.